जस हिंदी देखने वाले सारे व्यूअर्स को हम स्वागत करते हैं इस स्पेशल प्रोग्राम में। आज हम आपकी स्पेशल खास मुलाकात करा रहे हैं एक ऐसे इंडिविजुअल के साथ जो इंडिया को मॉडर्न फाइनेंशियल टाइम्स में लेके आ रहे हैं। ऑफ कोर्स ये मैंडेट काफ़ी सालों से चलता आ रहा है, बट आज हम बात करेंगे विद द चेयरमैन ऑफ द इंटरनेशनल फाइनेंशियल सर्विसेज सेंटर अथॉरिटी, मिस्टर इंजेटी श्रीनिवास। सबसे पहले मिस्टर श्रीनिवास, आपको प्रोग्राम में स्वागत है। हाउ इज इट गोइंग? वेलकम टू न्यूयॉर्क।
Thank you for having me on your show. No, so far it's been going very well. Yes.
It's fantastic to have you here in New York, especially after the last couple of years. The world has seen global financial disruptions at a scale never before experienced in history. We'll get to that in a minute. First, I kind of want to learn a little bit about the work that you've been doing since you've been appointed as chairman of this fairly new body in India. So your mandate from 2020, shortly after you were appointed chairman of the International Financial Services Center, was not just of regulating, but developing financial services businesses. How do you feel you've accomplished that in the last 2.5 years?
So this entire project is a very forward-looking and a very relevant project for India, as it's growing into a major economy and integrating with the global economy. So when you have aspirations to be the third largest economy, currently we're the fifth largest economy, you will have to be attracting global capital flows. And notwithstanding the interest global investors may have in India, unless you're able to facilitate those flows through appropriate mechanisms, you can't optimize it. The purpose of setting up this international financial jurisdiction within India is precisely to provide for that connect between domestic India and the global economy and the global capital flows. The IFSCA has been envisaged as a unified regulator, a unified authority, so that there are no regulatory overlaps and there are no interregulatory gaps or coordination issues. So within the International Financial Services Center, the IFSCA regulates the banking sector, the insurance, reinsurance sector, the capital markets, the funds sector and pension. In the last 2 years, what we have been able to do is, one, we have been able to bring out a set of regulations which are not inward looking, which don't try to copy what prevails in the domestic area. We have benchmarked it with the global benchmarks, with the best practices. And today we are proud to say that we have best in class regulations across the segments in the financial sector. So that's one big sort of milestone which has been achieved. The second is that over a period of time there has been a lot of traction, and today we have 23 banks. 9 out of those 23 are foreign banks. We have foreign banks from different geographies, in the sense we have 2 American banks, JP Morgan Chase and Citibank. We have Standard Chartered, Barclays and HSBC from the UK. We have BNP Paribas from France. We have MUFG from Japan. So as you see, it's a very diversified sort of presence. We are able to attract these large institutions. And one thing we need to keep in mind is that these, large reputed global institutions don't take a decision to locate themselves that easily, unless they look at a very long-term prospect. So this is in a way a clear endorsement that there's a lot of potential for India to attract foreign capital, and GIFT sort of becomes an interface. It's not that it's the only gateway or the only way, it's providing an additional avenue.
I'm glad you mentioned GIFT. So just for our viewers' benefit, Gujarat International Finance Tech, GIFT, like you said, is supposed to be a dominant gateway for global financial flows in and out of India. Once again, can you give us some specific examples of how GIFT has been able to do that in the last couple of years?
So I've explained you that in banking, for example, today the asset size which are handled by these banks is close to 38 billion USD, and that figure has been reached in hardly a few years' time. So it's a clear indication that they are consolidating their India book in the GIFT. If you look at the funds industry, today in less than 6 months to 8 months, more than 50 funds have been set up in GIFT with a combined sort of commitment of close to 8 billion. And daily you have applications from the industry, whether it is the funds or whether it is from banking units or finance companies, they're all coming here. Give you one more example. IOC is a large company, a public sector undertaking. They have a lot of international dealings. They import crude. They invest in oil fields. Whatever they do, they export. Whatever they do, it requires international financial services. Now they have decided to set up their wholly owned subsidiary to deal with their entire foreign investment and treasury operations in the GIFT. Hitherto they were in Singapore. So what's happening now is that what was earlier getting set up in Mauritius or Cayman Islands or Singapore or Dubai is slowly getting relocated or re-domiciled to the GIFT. So it is becoming the corridor that if you are India-centric, if you are looking at investment opportunities in India, it's much better to be closer to India. And in a way, within India, you are actually in India, and get the benefits of an offshore jurisdiction. Right. So it's best of both worlds.
Would you say that the jurisdiction over which you have purview is affected by or above any political upheavals or changes that may befall in the country?
I think it has gone beyond those vulnerabilities. It's a national project, irrespective of any political sort of ideologies. I don't think, because India in that sense, if you look at it, it's a democracy. There's always been political stability. Governments may have come and gone, but there have been no major reversals. There's always been a continuity. So we have very responsible governments, and whatever is in the national interest, I don't think there's any threat of that being reversed. And this is something, it is in our pathway to full capital account convertibility. This is one, stage where in a zone you are having the full capital account convertibility, but you're not having it across the country at large. So I don't see that threat being real.
Speaking of governments, which of the various international players that are now involved in this project would you say you look at as one of your premier partners? And specifically, since we are sitting in the United States, is there a role that the U.S. plays perhaps above any of the other players that may be involved right now?
So I would say that it's very difficult to rank them or to prioritize. I wouldn't like to do that, but definitely 70% of the global finance emanates from the US, or its destination is the US. So if you're not connected with the US, you are losing out something. And a lot of US funds which are coming into India were coming from Mauritius. So now, when you have visibility, when you are able to establish and demonstrate that you have a jurisdiction which is equally beneficial or attractive, if not better, and there is robust governance and regulatory capacity, then you are able to have a direct connect. So that is something which becomes a desired outcome of this sort of reaching out to institutions here, and and it's being received very well.
In closing, Mr. Srinivas, this project, this entity was started in 2020. Of course, the world has changed greatly since then. I'd love for you to share with us if COVID and the global economic reverberations that came after have hindered, impacted in any sort of way the work that you're doing, that this entity is doing, GIFT is doing, or has it given a new insight on how to tackle potential challenges in the future?
I'm inclined to opt for the latter. So the whatever setback has been universal, but in the Indian context, I think there's been a lot of beneficial outcome. It has really spurred technology, development of technology. Fintechs have, come up in a big way. A lot of innovations have been there for financial inclusiveness, etc. So I think, in a way, COVID has compelled us to have a system which can deliver even in crisis. So I don't see it as something, and in any case, that's no option. I mean, you have COVID, you have to face those issues which it poses. But you should not be in a situation where you can't do anything just because there's COVID, because you have no control over that. So I would say that, in fact, this is one area, fintech and sustainable finance. We are trying to play a leadership role. In the fintech, we have a fintech entity framework, we have a fintech incentive scheme, we have regulatory and innovation sandbox, we have fintech bridges with our counterpart regulators, the latest being with Singapore. So I think all this is basically to see that in many of these issues, a global cooperation is very important. Collective efforts are very important. Let's not look at international financial centers as merely competing with each other. There's enough for all. So you don't have to fiercely compete. You need to have very strong governance structures. You need to have very high quality regulations, and you need to collaborate with each other. It creates a win-win situation. Finance is not one sector where the winner takes it all. Everybody, has to play a role, and there's interdependencies are there.
That's certainly a refreshing mindset to hear from someone so deeply involved in this sector. Last statement, you mentioned earlier in the interview India's goal of becoming the world's second largest economy. As your position as chairperson, what kind of timeline do you give for that?
That's very hard to say, but I think it's a question of that point of inflection, and then there's exponential growth. So what you have achieved in 3-4 decades, you've been able to achieve in less than a decade. So what you will then going forward, I think the same arithmetic would apply. So it will be much more compressed. So now I think the 3 trillion to 5 trillion journey will be the tough journey. But once you are able to achieve that milestone, I think then doubling it and then going beyond that would be much easier. Based on the assumption that we'll have a financial stability, the sort of progressive reforms will take place, and India will also benefit hugely out of what's happening currently. Because today the perception towards India is different. It's changing a lot. So the whole world is interested in what India is doing, because India matters. So I think the time is for us. It is for us to make best use of it. So of course, I'm a small player in this game, but I think GIFT is also a very exciting project, and whatever little we can do, it will have its own value addition.
You may refer to yourself as a small player, but your insight is quite deep, and we appreciate your time. Mr. Injeti Srinivas,
Thank you.
Chairperson, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.